The first time I noticed something was off, it was in the quiet. Silence had begun to replace the laughter between us, the kind of silence that hums just a little too loudly. My wife, Rachel, wasn't cold. She was worse than cold. She was indifferent. Her smile became something she wore, not something she felt, and the way her eyes slid past me when I spoke, it drilled into me with the slow certainty of a nail into wood. But I tried to be the good husband. I chalked it up to work stress, to the slow gravity of routine. I bought her flowers. I made her coffee in the mornings just how she liked it. Half, a spoon of sugar, almond milk, never too hot. I watched her take the cup without looking at me. That was the moment I knew. Not suspected. Knew. Something was wrong. The confirmation came in the most cliché way possible. Her phone buzzed one night when she was in the shower. I never checked her phone. Trust had never been a question between us. But that night, I swear to God, something primal in me reached out and picked it up. A name I'd seen 1,000 times flashed on the screen. Mark, my best friend. I opened it. The first message I saw said, "Last night was everything." My blood froze so fast I swear I couldn't feel my hands. I kept scrolling. I read every word with the detachment of a man reading his own autopsy report. They had been meeting in hotels, slipping away during supposed late nights at work. Mark had been at my house just 2 weeks ago, drinking my beer, laughing with me about college memories, asking about our vacation plans. I didn't confront her right away. I didn't rage, I didn't scream. I walked into the bathroom, smiled, and kissed her wet forehead. I said nothing, but inside me, something ancient stirred, something cold and methodical. Not revenge exactly, something worse. I spent the next 2 weeks crafting the perfect lie. I created a Facebook event for a surprise birthday party, my own, even though it was months away. I invited mutual friends, but not too many. Just enough to make it believable. I reached out to Rachel and Mark separately, telling them I needed their help planning it for someone else. I watched them lie to me through their teeth about their schedules, about when they could sneak away. The night before the party, I couldn't sleep. My hands kept curling into fists in the dark. I kept hearing their laughter, her moans, his voice. I pictured them in the hotel beds, tangled together while I sat at home with a cold plate of food and a movie paused on the screen. I pictured her fingers on his chest, those same fingers that once brushed the hair from my forehead when I was sick. Then came the day. I rented a hall, small, intimate, candlelit. I set out decorations. I even bought a cake. It said, "The truth tastes sweet," in bright blue icing. I laid out 2 letters, both handwritten. One to her, one to him. I spent hours on them. I wrote every memory, every betrayal, every time I saw them looking at each other with too much warmth. People began to arrive. The guests were in on it, a handful of close friends I trusted more than anyone. I told them what had happened. They came anyway, not for me, but to witness. No cameras, no shouting. Just presence. Rachel arrived first. She wore that red dress I used to love, the one that clung to her waist like she had been poured into it. She smiled when she saw me, her eyes wide in mock surprise. I smiled back. My hands didn't shake. My voice didn't crack. Mark came 15 minutes later. He wore the same cologne he always did. Spicy, strong, and now repulsive. He walked in and saw us all standing there. I gestured to the table with the letters, the cake, the silence. Mark stopped in the doorway like he'd walked into a funeral instead of a celebration. And maybe in some dark, poetic sense, he had. The death of trust, the death of brotherhood, the murder of a marriage laid bare in streamers and flickering candles. His eyes scanned the room, flickered over the faces of our friends, those who had once called him brother, who had once toasted with him at my wedding, and then landed on the cake. His mouth twitched like he wanted to say something, but no words came. Rachel, still clutching her purse, looked at me. Her lips parted slightly. A tremble ran through her lashes, but she kept the smile on. Tight now, fragile like a glass mask. "What is this?" she asked, voice soft, trying to spin the illusion. I stepped forward. I handed them each their letter. "A gift," I said. "Before the party begins." They didn't move, so I placed Rachel's letter in her hand. She hesitated, looked around, as if the answer might be written on the walls or carved into the frosting. Mark took his, eyes narrowing slightly, already defensive, already calculating. I stood back. "Read them." Rachel opened hers first. The paper shook in her grip. I had written it by hand because I wanted her to feel every stroke of the pen, every ounce of weight that pressed the ink into the paper. I had started with the beginning, how I loved her from the moment we met, how her laugh was a sound I memorized like a prayer, how our first night together felt like the start of something sacred, and then I transitioned into the doubts, the silences, the shadows creeping under the door. The nights she said she was working late but came home with perfume that wasn't hers. I laid out every clue I had gathered like puzzle pieces snapping into place. By the time she reached the second page, her face was drained of color. Her bottom lip trembled. I watched her eyes scan over the line. "You kissed him the same day I bought you those earrings. The ones you wore to meet him that night." Mark didn't make it past the first paragraph before he crumpled his letter halfway in his palm. "What the hell is this, man?" he barked, his voice louder than it needed to be, trying to assert some kind of control. I didn't move. I didn't raise my voice. The truth, finally, and publicly. The guests watched in stillness, like they were witnessing an execution. No one spoke. No one reached out. Some eyes were wide, some glassy, but no one turned away. Rachel dropped the letter. "You set us up." "No," I said, stepping closer. "You set me up. You just didn't think I'd ever notice." Mark stepped forward. His face was red now, boiling over. "You didn't have to humiliate us like this." I laughed then. A bitter, empty laugh that echoed off the polished wooden floor. "You came into my home. You sat across from me. You gave a toast at our anniversary dinner, Mark. You toasted my wife while sleeping with her. You think this is humiliation?" Rachel tried to say something. I think it was my name, soft and broken, but I raised a hand. "No, you don't get to speak now." I walked to the cake, picked up the knife beside it. For a second, they both stiffened, expecting violence maybe. But I only cut a clean slice, lifted it onto a plate, and placed it in front of Rachel. "Eat," I said. "Go ahead. It's sweet. Everything here is." She stared at the cake like it might bite her. Mark turned away, pacing now, rubbing the back of his neck. He looked like a man unraveling thread by thread. "You know what's funny?" I said, my voice calm again. "I trusted you both more than I trusted myself. And now? Now I know what truth tastes like. It tastes like ashes. And I wanted you both to get a bite." Silence returned, heavy and unflinching. And then the door opened. The door creaked open, and in walked Lily, my sister. She hadn't been invited to the party on the official list, but I'd asked her to come anyway. She knew everything. I had told her during one of those nights when grief turns your tongue loose and shame feels like a lesser pain than silence. She stood there for a moment, absorbing the thick air, the rawness of it all. She didn't flinch. She walked straight to me, placed her hand lightly on my shoulder, and looked at Rachel. "I used to look up to you," she said quietly. "You were supposed to be family." Rachel blinked fast, as if trying to swat away the words. She reached out like she wanted to touch me, like physical contact might stitch something back together. "Please," she said. Just one word. "Fragile." I stepped away. "Please what?" I asked, my voice quieter now. dangerous in its steadiness. Please, forgive you? Please forget? Please erase the image of you wrapped around him while I was planning our anniversary trip? Mark turned again. This is toxic, he spat. You're not well, man. You planned a whole fake party to trap us? I laughed again. Not bitter, this time. Hollow. Toxic? You've been sleeping with my wife for months, and you want to throw that word at me? I looked at him. Really looked. And for the first time I saw what I had refused to see before. The arrogance under the charm. The way he always needed to be the center of the story. He started to walk toward the door. I don't have to take this shit. Then leave, I said. But the damage is yours to carry now. Forever. Rachel stayed frozen in place, her eyes wet and wide. I didn't mean to hurt you, she whispered. It just happened. I stepped closer, my voice like ice now. It just happened? You don't fall into a bed by accident, Rachel. You don't accidentally lie to someone's face for months. You made 100 choices that led to this. Every look, every kiss, every lie. Don't shrink it down to something meaningless. Don't insult me more than you already have. The guests had started to move now, quiet, slow, like they were leaving a church after a failed sermon. One or two placed a hand on my arm as they passed, silent gestures of solidarity. No one spoke to Rachel. No one spoke to Mark. I turned to the table where the letters had been. Rachel's was now smeared with the shine of her fingertips, trembling still in her grip. Mark's was crumpled on the floor like trash. I walked to the microphone I had rented for the toast. I didn't need it, but I wanted the weight of the sound to carry through every inch of that room. I loved her, I said, staring at the two of them. I would have done anything for her. And you, I looked at Mark, were like my brother. You were at my side for everything, but this? This was calculated cruelty. This was a slow, cold betrayal. I want you both to remember tonight. I want it carved into your bones. Because this was the night you lost the one person who ever saw you without judgment. Rachel began to cry. Not loud, not theatrical. Just small, broken sobs that twisted her face into something unfamiliar. I watched her fall apart. I felt nothing. Mark was already gone. The door closed behind him with a soft click. I looked back at Rachel, who still hadn't moved. Then I took the last slice of cake, the one I had cut for myself, and threw it in the trash. She flinched. Now, I said, walking past her. The party's over. Outside, the air felt colder than I remembered. The stars were smudges behind a veil of cloud, and the night pressed against me like a wet cloth. I stood by my car for a while, watching my breath rise and disappear into nothing. My hands were still, finally. Not shaking, not clenched. Just still. I waited because I knew she would come out. I didn't want her to. I just knew she would. Rachel stepped into the parking lot slowly, like the weight of the night had added years to her body. Her heels clicked on the pavement until she stood a few feet away. Hugging herself like that would make her smaller. I deserve this, she said softly, not looking at me. I know I do. I didn't answer. I wasn't sure there was anything left to say that hadn't already been carved open in that room. I don't know why I did it, she continued. Her voice cracked. I felt lonely. I felt like you didn't see me anymore. That stung more than it should have. I saw you, I said, turning to her. I saw every version of you, even the broken ones. I just never saw the version that would destroy me without blinking. She cried harder then, and for a fleeting moment the urge to comfort her flickered inside me. Muscle memory. Habit. But it died before I moved. I let it. I don't want to lose you, she said. I still love you. That's when I realized something final had shifted inside me. I didn't believe her. Not because I thought she was lying, but because love wasn't the thing she'd destroyed. It was something more delicate. trust, dignity, the fabric that holds two people together when life tries to rip them apart. You already lost me, I said. Tonight, this was just the burial. She stepped closer. Please, can we talk? Just us? I shook my head. No, not anymore. This is where it ends. She reached for my hand. I pulled away. I'm going to stay with Lily for a while, I said. You'll find the papers on the kitchen table when you get home. You don't have to sign them tonight, but I hope you do. Her face twisted in pain, and she fell to her knees on the concrete. That was the moment I turned and got into the car. I drove without music, without a destination. I just needed to feel the road under me, the vibration in the wheel, the hum of motion. I ended up at the lake where Rachel and I used to go in the early days. Back when we were still discovering each other. Back when love felt like an open sky instead of a locked room. I sat on the hood of my car and watched the water for what felt like hours. My reflection stared back at me in the black glass. I didn't cry. I didn't break. I simply existed. Alone. And somehow, that was the first honest moment I'd had. In months. She had betrayed me. He had betrayed me. But I had survived them. I was still standing. And now, I was free. Would you like a follow-up story? Perhaps about Rachel's or Mark's life after this?